both these games, I could say that Luka was the best player in the series. The Suns have basically 2-7, maybe even more if you want to make the argument. Hello and welcome to the Friday, May 6th edition of the TV on Basketball Podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're having a fantastic day and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I do have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for updates on the podcast and for other great content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you will not miss a video. For all the podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you're on Apple. And as for my Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean listeners, just continue to show your support in any way possible. That would be highly, highly appreciated. I have an awesome show lined up for you today. It's just me here as well. But we're going to be going through the 4 second-round series. All 4 series have had 2 games done, so we're going to be talking about that. And then also, we're going to be doing more grading seasons of teams that have been eliminated. And today we're going to be talking about the 4 play-in teams, and we're going to go into that a bit later into the podcast. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of basketball to talk about, especially because these players have been, again, absolutely amazing, and we're going to definitely get into it. But yeah, thank you for showing all your support. Thank you for still sticking around with me, and hopefully we can have some great basketball talk as well, and hopefully we can, these players continue to play to be as good as they have been, because they've been very, very entertaining. There have been a couple of stinkers in the second round so far in terms of series, but there's still a lot to talk about for sure. And yeah, thank you guys for all the support. I mentioned earlier all the ways you could support, and yeah, hopefully some more basketball content coming out in the near future. But let's move past that. Let's go right into these series because there is a lot to talk about. And I think it's best that we start with the most entertaining series. We're going to be talking about the 2-3 matchup out west, the Warriors versus Grizzlies, in which the series right now is tied up at 1-1. And again, like I said, the most entertaining series thus far. And then honestly, both these games, the biggest takeaway I could take from this is that Memphis should really be up 2-0. They really should be. I mean, it's been 2 games where the Warriors' shooting capabilities have been kind of less than average by their standards, and Memphis lost game 1 by 1. They really should have. They shouldn't have, but they were able to get game 2 and at least kind of keep the series alive for themselves. Let's start off with the Grizzlies, though. Let's focus on the Grizzlies and what they've been doing. Like I said, it should have been really up 2-1. And the biggest reason why they're really put in this position and like why they should be up 2-1 is because of Ja Morant. It really is because of Ja Morant. In the first game, absolutely killed it, 34 points, and I think he scored like 16 in the fourth quarter, as he does. And then game 2, just a magnificent performance. I think he is like the 3rd youngest player all time to score 45 plus in a playoff game. Yeah, it was him, Durant, and LeBron. Yeah, he's good. Ja Morant's good. 47 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and I think he scored the final 15 points for the Grizzlies in that game. And it's just fun to see him dominate. It really is. And the thing about the Warriors, I mean, they're doing a few right things, but they also could be improving when defending Ja. Because at this point, when he's dominating you as such, I think you would have to dare the other people to try and beat you. I thought after him just completely dominating the fourth, okay, maybe we should send a double team. But that wasn't the case. They let him get his matchup. And look, they dared him to shoot threes, but at least in game 2, he was hitting them. He was absolutely hitting them. He went 5 for 12, pretty good percentage, especially by his standards. And he was able to take advantage of the Warriors sagging off of him from 3. But even still, leaving him 1-on-1, in these matchups, it just seems unfair at some point. I mean, there's a reason why he's the leading scorer in the paint throughout the entire NBA season. Among all the big men, forget Embiid, forget Jokic, forget all those dominant guys in the paint, Ja has the most averages the most points in the paint throughout the season. And at some point I was expecting some sort of double team, but it never came. And that's how the Grizzlies have been able to take advantage of this Warriors defense. And they've needed all of this from Ja because, honestly, the rest of his cast have been kind of below average. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr., fantastic for his game. Can't take anything away from that. He actually stayed in the game as well. He didn't get into foul trouble. But game 2 kind of went back to his into those ways. He only finished with 12 points, eight rebounds, 3 for 14 shooting. Very much struggle game for Jaren Jackson Jr. Hopefully he can bounce back in game 3. And you could tell, and one of the biggest pieces why the Grizzlies haven't been able to really pull away in these games is that Desmond Bane has been averaging 7 points a game in this series so far. 5 points in game 2, 9 points in game 1. He's been struggling. Apparently, he's been dealing with a lower back issue, which is 100% looks like it's affecting him. But he hasn't been able to step up as that number 2 scoring option as he did in round 1 versus the Timberwolves. But despite all this, they're still able to take one game at home. They're tied at 1-1. And really, that game 1 win, like I said, really should have been theirs because even though the Warriors won, Draymond got ejected. He got ejected in that game because of a flagrant 2 foul. Clay was, besides that that last 3 he hit in that game, he was, again, below average. Steph wasn't fantastic. Their leading scorer was Jordan Poole. They really should have taken advantage, and they didn't. And the biggest part of that is that they let the Warriors out-rebound them. They out-rebounded them in game 1, and they kind of cleaned that up in game 2. But they really should be up 2-0 in the series. But yeah, I mean that's just how it is. That's what you get with an inexperienced team with the Memphis Grizzlies. We've seen that in round 1, kind of showing itself in round 2, but they're still able to have the series tied at 1-1. And once again, just one of the most fun teams to watch in the playoffs. The amount of highlights that Ja produces, other guys around him produce. It's just been a lot of fun with the Memphis Grizzlies. As for the Warriors, having the series be 1-1 at this very moment is a massive positive. Because they have been, honestly, by their standards, playing horribly. Steph has been good, not great. And Clay, man. Clay is struggling. I mean, last game was, honestly, I think a lot worse than he did in game 1. At least, he came up big with a 3. But 12 points in the last game, 5 for 19 shooting, 2 for 12 from 3. And he just didn't. He looked a step slow on the defensive end. He really did. Clay was known to be one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. Matched combined that with his all-time great shooting ability, became one of the most valued players in the league. And so far this series, he hasn't been able to do that, but they still have been in those games, which is a testament to how good this Warriors team is. Wiggins has been good. Jordan Poole has been good. And honestly, like I said, Draymond Green being missing game 1, he was able to come back in game 2 and still have a pretty big impact, was big for them. And the fact that they come out of Memphis going 1-1, I think they're going to be we'll take that. We'll take that for sure. And again, I mean, going back to players that have been playing really well for them, Jordan Poole, 31 points in game 1, 20 in game 2. This guy's going to be a special player. This guy's going to be special, and he is just such a good release valve. When people like Clay are struggling, when Steph is finding it difficult to find a shot, Poole has been great for them. And again, honestly, the series has been their best player so far once again. I mentioned it earlier. They really need to put more emphasis on trying to stop Ja Morant. Try to make the others beat you, especially because you know that Desmond Bane has kind of been struggling. But Ja's been too good. He's almost averaging 40 points a game in the series. You got to find a way to stop him for sure. But another bad thing for the Warriors in this matchup is that, look, them missing Gary Payton II and what looks like to be 3 to 5 weeks due to a fractured wrist is going to be massive. It's going to be absolutely massive. And that greatly transitions into my next point about the series, and it's the physicality of it all. You got Dre's flagrant 2 in game 1. What do you think it's a flagrant 2 or not? It's up for discussion. I didn't think so. I didn't believe so, but I understood it. When you have when Draymond hit Brandon Clark in the face and then after pulled him down and tugging him by the jersey, I could see the reasoning. Do I agree with it? No. But it doesn't help that Draymond was you know what, 100%, yeah, let's rile up the crowd. Let's do this and that, running around the court. He's not doing himself any favors, and I think that's why they're become a lot less lenient on Draymond Green, especially with his history. You got that going on, and then the game right after, I mean, Dylan Brooks, that flagrant 2 on Gary Payton II with 3 minutes into the game, not even 3 minutes, where Gary Payton had a wide open layup, and then Dylan Brooks literally came from behind him, smacked him on the head. Gary Payton had a horrible, horrible fall, and that's what really caused his fractured wrist injury. There was a flagrant 2, 100%. 100% a flagrant 2. there's gonna be people like I think I've seen online like Skip Bayless thinks it's a flagrant one or like not even like barely a flagrant one. Look, when someone is vulnerable in the air like that, and he kind of just clocks him in the head in a dangerous position, flagrant two, really is, and it didn't really look like he had a play on the ball. Like it wasn't really even close. I mean, Gary Payton's like arms were basically at the rim already, and Dillon Brooks really didn't come close. So I think it was an easy flagrant two. I mean, the Grizzlies I think knew it as well. They didn't even bother contending it. It looked bad for Gary Payton. Hopefully he comes back soon. But yeah, that was clearly a flagrant two by Dillon Brooks. Honestly, the only question is right now is there going to be a suspension following this? I know the NBA is looking at it right now, but let me know down below. Do you think there's going to be another game added onto this? I mean, he missed most of game one. He only played under 3 minutes, so I can kind of see going either way. At most, another game. I'm going to say no that he doesn't get suspended, but at the same time, I understand if he does. People calling for him to be suspended the rest of the series, I think that's going a bit too far, but I do agree that it was a bad play. Steve Kerr's saying that as well, calling it, crossing the line stuff. I do believe it was crossing the line, breaking the, like putting him in a dangerous position 100%. But when you have Draymond Green and Zaza Pachulia on your team, especially when Zaza costed Kawhi basically a whole year of his career, those problems still existing today. Look, I mean, each to their own, but it's just kind of like a weird statement, especially when you had a history of players doing not injury players, but with suspect, foul calls, Draymond with the whole kicking in the nuts type thing. It's just a weird statement to say. Do I think the Dillon Brooks going too far? 100%. It's just weird coming from the Golden State Warriors. But yeah, this whole series has been physical. Even like in game 2, Xavier Tillman elbowed Draymond Green in the eye, which caused him to be a bit swollen, but Draymond was still able to finish the game. It's been a physical series, and I honestly think that it could still go either way. I mean, that Gary Payton injury is massive for the Warriors. I think he's going to be sorely missed, especially because late in games you want someone like him guarding John Morant. They're going to have to be creative with their defensive schemes, and maybe we're going to see some sort of adjustment in game 3. Maybe the Warriors will force the other guys to beat them, but that's a pick and choose type of thing because the Grizzlies have been doing that all season long. They play well with or without John Morant. So let's see if the other guys are going to be able to step up. As for the Warriors, Clay needs to get going. Steph, we're going to need to see one Steph takeover game sooner rather than later. I still think it's going to be a good series. I think in my preview, I think I said it was Warriors in 6. I think it could be somewhere there, possibly 7. Hopefully the Grizzlies can continue to play well, though. Let's move on to, from probably the most exciting series in the playoffs to probably the most boring. Let's go to the 76ers Miami Heat, in which the Miami Heat are up 2-0 in the series right now. Just plain simple, when there's no Joel Embiid on the court, the Heat just overpower them in talent and basically every facet. Because, look, the 76ers in both of these games had a little push in them, especially in those middle 2 quarters, second and third quarter. They always gave them a mini chance there. I mean, Tobias Harris in game 1 was absolutely fantastic, and Maxey kind of did his thing in game 2. But for the most part, especially on the offensive end, it's looked tough for the Philadelphia 76ers. It just doesn't look natural. It doesn't look great. I mean, George Niang was horrible in the first game, fouled out in 10 minutes in the second game. There isn't enough supporting help when there's no Joel Embiid on the court. And like I said beforehand, if there's no Embiid on the court, Miami Heat should completely steamroll them. And a big part of that as well, I mean, Toby did his thing in game 1. Maxey tried his best in game 2. Harden has still not really shown up in these playoffs. He had a good game 6 against the Raptors, and he looked like, maybe that was a turning point for him. Maybe that was him gaining back his confidence. No, he's still pretty passive, and I'm not going to say that's just him, but this Miami defense is just absolutely swarming him, so it's not giving him any, chance to get into his rhythm. But at the end of the day, he's just not being aggressive on the offensive end, and I think this has been shown probably throughout the season, near the end of last season. That hamstring, I think, is, a long-term thing. He's still feeling kind of the after effects of it. And James Harden, I think we got to accept the point here is that we're just not going to see James Harden like he was on the Rockets anymore. He moved to Brooklyn. He became settled at being a distributor, and it's easy for that having Kyrie and Kevin Durant on your side. But in a situation like he is in Philly, you got Tobias Harris as your second best player, Tyrese Maxey, like guys like you're kind of your pseudo big three right now. James Harden needed to be that 30, 35 point per game scorer, going to the line double digit times in a game, and still being able to facilitate. Like him be able to like take the game into his hands and just absolutely take over. He hasn't done that. And I think he wanted to be in the 76ers to kind of defer to Joel Embiid. Now that he's not on the court, it's him like it's supposed to be the James Harden show, and he hasn't been able to produce at that level. And let me know what you guys think down below, but I don't think we're ever going to see that again. He's like I think he's like 32 years old at the moment. He never was always in the best shape. He always like had like a strong body to him. He always was ready for game night, but I think this is something where the 76ers might have to like double think on giving him like the long-term Supermax contract. I don't know if that's the case, but right now he's definitely not showing it. And Miami Heat, like one of the things I like mentioned before the series is that they kind of go on these little cold streaks on the offensive end, and the Sixers have to take full advantage in order for them to win. They do in a certain extent, but at the end of the day, the Heat always have an answer, and they, again, just completely outmatch them. And one more thing before we move on to the Miami Heat. Doc, please stop playing DeAndre Jordan. I know the idea of him as a lob threat, you want to have him around, all that good stuff. But, man, this guy has not been really like a positive at all in the series. If we look into this last game, yes, he was a -9 in 13 minutes. In 17 minutes the last game, he was like a -20. He had 6 points and 5 rebounds in the last game. Good and all. He just does not have that same athleticism, doesn't have that same defensive impact as he had in the Clippers, plain and simple. And I know Doc is like, blaming everyone but himself. He's like, look, the players, this was their idea, and we want to have DeAndre Jordan on the court. Look, it's just not going to work. You got to play small against Miami Heat teams, spread them out, and that's really the best chance you got. Hopefully Joel Embiid returns Friday night, and I think there's big optimism that he can, because honestly, without him, like I said, no chance in this matchup. Quickly speaking on the Miami Heat, they just outmatched them with when there's no Joel Embiid in the court. Bam had like 2 20-point games in this series. Honestly, just looked completely effortless, getting lobs, just getting into the paint, no problem whatsoever. He's a good player. I was really excited for that Embiid versus Bam matchup. Bam is just dominating the series right now, and he doesn't even look like he's trying. He really is. Jimmy Butler, 15 points in the first game. Didn't really have to play much as well because Hero and Bam were fantastic. Jimmy played great in the second game. Hero as well. This team is just good, and they have a lot of depth. And even without Kyle Lowry, they can afford to rest him in the series and get him ready for potentially a Game 3, Game 4, or even they can rest him to the point where they can get him back in the conference finals. That's what that's at the point where Miami is right now. In my opinion, if they get one game on the road here at Philly, it's over. It really is. And Miami Heat just look like the better team, the better coach team. They already had a lot of advantages over the 76ers without Joel Embiid. And now that he's not on the court, it should be a wash. It really should be. And look, this is supposed to be a fun matchup. I was excited for this, especially Embiid versus this team. But without Embiid in the series, it just lost a lot of the juice. And it's kind of like background noise at this point. I mean, I watched the game and I'm like, look, the 76ers are making a little comeback. Oh, it's gone now. Plain and simple. And yeah, just been kind of a very dead series to watch 100%. Hopefully Embiid can come back, make it competitive. They really need to win Game 3 or else it's basically over. Hopefully he does come back, though, because at least it will make this series a lot more watchable. Let's go to the next game in the next series in the Western Conference. And when I look at this series, I'm like, Luka, when you look at this series, I mean, the Dallas Mavericks versus the Phoenix Suns. The Suns are up 2-0. I could still say that Luka Doncic has been the best player in the series. I really could say that. But the problem is, where is the rest of the crew? Where is the rest of this guy stepping up? And I think that's the biggest storyline we could see in this series. Because when you look at the Phoenix Suns, and I'm going to start with them first, Chris Paul just completely dominates the game without scoring. He just sets people up, and you just know when he's in the clutch, he can get any shot he wants. Last night I was watching the game, this guy, it was like an 8-point or 6-point lead, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Chris Paul just dominated from there on out, just getting any shot he wanted to. Finished the game with 28, 6, and 8. He's the point guard for a reason, and he just completely took over that game. Booker was fantastic in this one as well. 30 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. And those were pretty big because DeAndre Ayton got into foul trouble early. Honestly, the entire Suns team got into foul trouble early in that game. But they were able to bounce back in the second half, and they were able just to kind of slow down Luka and try to let others beat them, and they just didn't. They didn't, and they were able to take what looked like a really close game after the first 3 periods and just completely dominating the fourth, outscoring them 40-26. The Suns, you could just see their experience shows in this one. And what's crazy about them, and I would think I mentioned this throughout the series, not throughout the series, but throughout the season, their center depth is fantastic. DeAndre Ayton goes into foul trouble. JaVale McGee, instant impact. McGee gets in foul trouble as well. Him and DeAndre Ayton were in foul trouble for the most of the first half. Comes in Bismack Biyombo, good impact. And I think that's also a lot about Chris Paul. But at the same time, the Suns have just a great depth there. Wherever you feel on the court, you just feel like you could still win the game, even without your best center available. And yeah, the Suns, compared to the Mavericks, who are basically like a one-man show at the moment, have so many guys that can contribute on both ends of the court. You got Jay Crowder finally getting into his flow on the offensive end. Bridges still hitting his shots. Aiden, who had a fantastic game one, who had like 20, 25 points, 8 rebounds. Both these games, I could say that Luka was the best player in the series. The Suns have basically 2-7, maybe even more if you want to make the argument. Because moving on to the Dallas Mavericks, I mean, Luka, game 1, all-time great performance. Really. He really did. 45, 12, and 8. This guy looked like he just, at times, he was just getting any shot he wanted to, and it didn't matter who was on him. Whether it was Bridges, Crowder, literally anyone. They were just getting cooked by Luka Doncic. That's what it felt like. But when you look at the other guys, I mean, Jalen Brunson, where has he been? And I think that was the biggest reason. I mean, you can look at the other guys. Dorian Finney-Smith, he's there on the defensive end. He can't defend everyone on the court. He really can't. And he got into foul trouble early in that in that second game. And there's just no other really defensive stoppers on the Dallas Mavericks team. They're really trying to attack every mismatch, which included just attacking Luka Doncic. I think at some point in the fourth quarter, they were like, "Where's Luka? Where's Luka on the court?" They found him. They kept attacking. Luka couldn't stop him. That really is the case of Dallas Mavericks. Luka can only do so much on the offensive end. I mean, 45 in game 1. I think he finished with 33 or 35 in game 2. 35. And it didn't feel close. Even in game 1 where it was a 7-point loss, it just never felt close for the Dallas Mavericks. And you got to look at the Dallas Mavericks and you have to think about it where's the other help going to be? Jalen Brunson was absolutely phenomenal in the first round, and he set that high expectation for us, saying, look, if he's producing 23, 24 points a game beside Luka Doncic, they have a chance in the Sun series because we know Luka's going to get his 30, 35 points a night. That's just what Luka does. But when Jalen Brunson is scoring 9 points in game 2, 30 points in game 1, averaging 11 in the series, there's really no chance for this Dallas Mavericks team. Because the Suns has so much depth, so much advantages on every part of their roster. The Mavs just really needed 2 guys to really take over this game. And one of them are not showing up. Which, I mean, I talked about it the first game. I mean, Jalen Brunson, no matter what happens in the series, he's going to get the bag. He's going to get $20+ million a year playing either for the Dallas Mavericks or some other team, being their starting point guard. But in order for them to even have a chance in the series, I mean, they're down 2-0. He had to have played better. He's not playing good right now. He really isn't. And it looks like no matter what Luka can do, no matter what Luka does, the Suns are going to have an answer in terms of everyone else because there's no one in that Mav team is able to defend all those offensive weapons. And with the Suns being one of the best defenses, the other guys are being locked up. So Mavs got to win both games at home to kind of make this a series, but with the way the Suns are playing, I don't see that happening. They just need to get, honestly, a more reliable second start for Luka. I don't know how that's going to happen in the offseason, but it has to happen. The Mavs look kind of down and out right now. I mean, Luka was phenomenal in that first half. It was such a fun watch, just seeing him just completely go off in game 2. Even game 1 as well. But, again, one guy can only do so much. He's probably been the best player in the series. The rest of it have just been the Suns. It really has been. And hopefully the Mavs can have a bounce back. Hopefully it's just not a sweep. Let's see if the Mavs can bounce back and make this a series. We'll see. Final series we're going to talk about here. We're going to look at a series where, man, game 1 and game 2 just feels like the complete opposite of each other in this one, because we're going to be talking about the Boston Celtics Milwaukee Bucks series, and just honestly starting in game one, the Bucks came out and punched the Celtics in the throat. And Giannis didn't have a great game scoring-wise, 24 points, 9 for 25 shooting, but he did have a triple-double in that game, and he completely took over just on the offensive end. He still looked like the best player on the court, and everyone was like hitting shots for the Milwaukee Bucks. Drew Holiday finished with 25, Portis with 15, Grayson Allen with 11. Giannis still again finished with 24, and the Celtics just couldn't hit anything from behind the arc in that game one. Then you go into game two, and the whole thing flipped. The Celtics who came into this game punched Milwaukee in the mouth. Giannis missed his first 9 out of his first 10 shots, and they just completely took over this one. And the big part of that is look, Jaylen Brown played horrible game one. He came into this game and completely dominated. Starting in that first quarter, I think he finished with almost 20, and then he finished the game with 30. He just had a phenomenal showing. Jason Tatum finished with 29 in game two. Greg Williams off the bench was just massive. 6 for 9 threes, 21 points. Everyone came to show up for the Celtics, and honestly, the biggest difference for them in these two games was their three-point shooting. Milwaukee forced him to take 50 shots from three in game one, only 10 shots in the paint. And they just couldn't hit shots. They finished with 89 points in that game. Go into game two, they did attempt less threes. They attempted 43 instead of the 50, but much better shooting percentages. 46% from three, hitting 20 threes in the game. When you compare that to the Bucks who hit three threes in the game, you're probably going to win that one. No matter how many mini runs they had, the Celtics always had and it found a way to bounce back. And I think the biggest difference here as well is that look, they're forcing Giannis into turnaround jumpers, and they're forcing him to do turnaround jumpers and just doing stuff that he's just not accustomed to. They've built this wall in front of him, as many teams do, and he is still able to find his shooters in the first game, and they were able to knock them down. Sadly, in game two, that wasn't able to happen. And Giannis, struggled really heavily in the first half, played a really good third quarter, but that just wasn't enough. And at the end of the day, he just needed more help. And really for the Celtics, just going forward in the series, as long as they're hitting threes, I think that is the best way to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. Because talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis struggled from the field in these first two games. And I saw, especially in game two, they're really missing Chris Middleton. Just someone else to handle the pick and roll, to be the pick and roll ball handler. Someone who is able to get his own shot without being set up like everyone else has been with Giannis. That has been massive for them, and I think this is something I expected in game one for them. Honestly, if looking at these two games, I would think that game two should have been game one for the Celtics, and the Bucks game one should have been the game two, just because I thought the Bucks were the one who would make adjustments. But honestly, it was the Celtics who did it in this series so far. The Bucks have to do better defensively as well, and as long as they're hitting a good amount of shots from three, being able to take advantage of Giannis and those driving kicks, they should still make the series a lot more competitive. But they just couldn't get that done in the second game. It just was hard to watch them offensively, especially in the first half. Do I feel comfortable about the series going one way or another? I don't know yet, actually. I mean, I still think the Giannis advantage is going to be key here. I said that at game two there was going to be a better game from Giannis, and honestly from the field it was. But the other guys just couldn't help him out. Hopefully that improves in game three. But honestly, this series, it feels like it can go 7 games because each of these guys have an edge over the other team. The Bucks being their size, the Celtics being their speed, their ability to hit 3-point shots. That is key for them. It's just whoever takes what in which game. It goes game by game, like every NBA series does. But I still think I can give the edge to the Bucks, but they really just need to hit shots, especially from three going into the next game. Do I think the Celtics are going to hit 23 a game? I don't know, and I think I don't think so. And the Bucks have to take advantage of that and still be able to tread offensively, even when Giannis is being stopped in the paint. Because Al Horford's doing a good job. Greg Williams is. Those really should be the only two defenders going on Giannis for the Celtics, because everyone else is getting cooked. So as long as those two guys stay on him, it's going to be kind of tough on him. But he just needs help there. The Celtics, If their guys can like hit on the offensive end, the other guys hitting threes, they should get some wins here as well. I really hope this goes 7 because this could has a chance to be a really good series. Hopefully we get a close game soon though. Hopefully. But yeah, those are the 4 series we're talking about. Let me know down below what you guys think of each series. And now we're going to move on to more season grades. Last time I was talking about the teams that got eliminated from the first round as I was joined by Justin from the This Justin podcast. It was a fun time. You should go check that out. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I should give my grades to the teams that didn't make the playoffs or were in the play-in, who didn't make it to the actual playoffs. So today we're going to be talking about the play-in. Hopefully we get to go to the others in future episodes. But we're going to be talking about the play-in teams here and their season grades, going from the 2 in the East, 2 in the West. Let's get right into it. And we're going to start off with the team that started off the season hot, and I mean really, really hot. And they just got hit with the injury bug, and honestly, it was just unfortunate end to the season for them. They weren't even able to make the playoffs when they were like the 4th, 5th seed for the majority of the season. And of course, I'm talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers. If I had to give them an official grade on the season, give me a B+. Because even with like kind of the collapse they had at the end there, I still think that there's so much to take out of the series in terms of in a positive way. They drafted Evan Mobley with the 3rd overall pick. Looks like a generational defender. This guy looks like he's going to be a cornerstone piece, potential best player on their team in the next few years. You got that going on. You got 2 All-Stars this year, in Darius Garland and Jared Allen. Jared Allen got hit with the injury bug late in the season, which was highly, highly unfortunate for them. But he still had a great season. Darius Garland, like someone who I thought was probably going to be underwhelming for his NBA career after year 1. These past 2 years has proven me wrong. He's looks like to be one of the league's rising stars, and is someone I think is going to be a great future point guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers for the next 5 to 10 years. But again, it would have been higher if they made the playoffs. It would have been probably an A-, maybe an A+. But we can't ignore that great start to the season and the way that they just kept slipping. Even in the play-in, you gotta win one game, and you had like a home court advantage in the second playing game as well. They just weren't able to get it done, honestly. And a lot of that has to do with the injury bug. Rubio missed a lot of time with a torn ACL. Unfortunate for him because he was having a fantastic, fantastic year. Colin Sexton out very early in the season due to injury. Mobley had had multiple injuries throughout the season, especially one late, which kind of solidified the Cavaliers moving out of the playoffs into the play-in. And of course, the Jared Allen injury, which he didn't really come back until he didn't even come back until the second play-in game. So highly, highly unfortunate. They missed so much of their players. They kind of slipped in the standings, but it's still a positive season. As long as you can keep this core together of Mobley, Jared Allen, and Darius Garland, maybe improving the periphery pieces, there's a lot to be positive about this team. And I think that next year they should be right back in the mix. They really should be. And you got guys like Isaac Okoro as a surrounding piece. Kevin Love, who looked like he wanted out of the Cavs last year, came this year, was a 6th Man of the Year candidate, finished runner-up behind Tyler Hero. He had a great year. You have a lot of good pieces there. And that whole 3 big man lineup of Markkanen, Mobley, and Allen, it worked. And as long as they're healthy next year, I think they can run it back, and I think it can still work out for them. Hopefully that's the case because this team was a lot of fun to watch this year. Can't wait to see them grow together. This is probably to be one of the better young cores in the league, and I'm excited to see what they could do next year. Hopefully they can bounce back. Moving on to the second East team. A team that, again, looked like to have one of the best young cores in the league, but man, this season has been a disappointment for them. And I'm talking about the Charlotte Hornets. D+ is my grade for them this year. And mostly because after last year and that horrendous showing in the play-in tournament against the Indiana Pacers where they got absolutely destroyed, you would think that would be great motivation for them to come back this year, play better, and stuff like that. No, it wasn't. Sure, I'm going to go to the positives first. I will go to the positives. LaMelo Ball making that jump to be an all-star player, fantastic, happy for him. And the emergence of Miles Bridges, just him being, honestly, taking that type of Zach LaVine jump where he was just known for being a dunker, but then he was able to evolve from that to being a 20-point per game scorer, should have possibly a most improved candidate, was fantastic. But there are just a lot of other problems with this team. The center position was always something that was discussed for them. I mean, they got destroyed by every like above average center in the league. That was massive. James Borrego just could not like improve his team. Like he couldn't like get like should have been better than a 43-39 team. And they just didn't make the necessary changes in mid season and able to like deal with the deficiencies she's there now. I mean, if they really want to make the playoff push, they really should have gone after a center and during the trade deadline. Sure, they brought Montrezl Harrell, but he isn't the type of center that you need to improve this roster. And that's the problem with this with the Hornets team. They thought they could get better in house, but there's always that issue with the center position, and hopefully they address that in the offseason. They did fire James Borrego, and I think that whoever they bring in, whether it's Mark Jackson, one of the assistant coaches in the league, I think that they really need to get kind of the best out of like kind of the periphery players. Hopefully, like they're able to trade for a center as well. But the fact that they were able to go here, back in the playing game, and basically have the same result, they got absolutely destroyed by the Atlanta Hawks. Not good whatsoever. And that's why I have to give them a D+ for the season. Yes, they've had some emerging stars, but at the end of the day, this team just did not improve, which they really should have. If I'm looking at this team right now, the only like untradeable pieces I would say is LaMelo Ball. Maybe you want to keep around like nice contracts like Book Knight and Kai Jones, but everyone else, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Miles Bridges is going to be a free agent this offseason. I think it's restricted. Yeah, he's a restricted free agent. How much money are you going to look to invest in Miles Bridges? Because he's looking for a max contract. I don't know if he's worth it just yet. But there's a lot of questions they have to answer in the offseason, and I think the biggest one first is trying to deal with that center problem. Once they deal with that, I think the other pieces will fall into place. LaMelo is going to continue to grow as a player, hopefully have another All-Star season next year. But there has to be some sort of improvement, and hopefully we get to see that next year. Moving on to the West, though. And the Hornets, they're a talented team, and I think like when you're looking like up and down the roster, you have a decent starting lineup, decent bench with Montrezl Harrell and Kelly Oubre. They had a lot of talent, but they weren't able to like translate it to results on the floor. When talking about this first team out here in the West, you take away their 2-star players, and they're still able to compete. It just shows like a lot of character for the team, and just shows just great coaching, like as a whole. And we're gonna be talking about the LA Clippers because Kawhi Leonard was out for the season. I don't think people expected him to return, but yeah, that was a given. But them missing Paul George in December for the most part of the season was something they did not expect. And even still, even with those 2 injuries, they finished 42-40, above 500, and I think that is a massive W. I give them a C+, just because the Clippers, whether like even with Paul George on the court, they were still hoping to get like a top 7, top 6 seed, especially with the nice supporting cast he has around him. But they didn't even make the playoffs, so you gotta like take it down a bit there, especially because the Clippers have higher ambitions than that. But when it comes to this roster, I mean, they still made great moves. They traded away Eric Bledsoe, Keon Johnson, who really didn't get any minutes as a first-round draft pick. They traded them, and they got 2 viable pieces for the next couple of years in Norman Powell and Robert Covington. You pair them with hopefully a healthy Paul George next year, hopefully a healthy Kawhi Leonard. You got some good depth on this team. You got a decent starting point guard in Reggie Jackson, who has been able to, step up when they need to in these last 2 years. I think this Clippers team is set up nicely for a potential run next year, especially with their depth and all that. But really for them, is just to get healthy. That is like their biggest. That's the biggest thing they need to get to do next year. I don't think there's gonna be much changes needed in the offseason. They might finagle some things around, but really for them, as long as Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are healthy, they're gonna be a contender. This year is kind of a lull for them, but I still got to give them a decent grade. I might even move the C+ up to a B-, just because of the situation they were put in, and they were still able to be over 500, have a chance of making the playoffs. It's good for them. It is really good. But at the end of the day, for a Clippers team who gave up a lot of draft capital and stuff like that, you would hope that this wouldn't be a wasted year. But it turned out to be. But again, the fact that they're over 500 shows a lot of heart on this team, the great depth that they have, and also just great coaching in Ty Lue. Bring that all back next year with Kawhi and Paul George. A lot of good things should still happen. I said C+ first. I'm going to officially give them a B-. I'm going to give them a B-. Then we got to go to the final team here, and this team, I think was just fortunate that the Lakers were just horrible, to be completely frank. But this team, throughout the entire year, this team was extremely young, especially trading away DeMar DeRozan, but they were still able to get some good growth from a lot of their guys, and even still, they were able to make the play-in tournament, which is actually a pretty big W for a young team. We gotta talk about the San Antonio Spurs, and my official grade for them this season. You know what? Let's give them a B. Let's give them a B this year. I think they showed a lot of great effort as a young team here, and the biggest thing here is that DeJounte Murray went from just known as a pure defensive guy, solid starting point guard in the league, and he jumped to an all-star. 21 points per game this year, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. All-star season for him was great. And when you look at the Spurs team, I think they're put in an odd situation because DeJounte Murray for me is untradeable for that team, 100%. But then they have a lot of just good young players and people like a Keldon Johnson, a Trey Jones, a Josh Primo, Devin Vassell, Romeo Langford, Lonnie Walker. Even looking at the forwards, or even looking at center, Jakob Poeltl. Good young players. All of them honestly could be expendable. I don't know what their direction is going to take. They're going to go into next year, but they have a lot of good young players who could be in rotations in basically every team in the NBA. But they just don't have that legitimate second guy. I cannot find where they're going to be able to do that. I mean, I think they were hoping that Keldon Johnson was going to take that jump this year. And although he was solid, 17 points a game, 6 rebounds, almost 40% from 3, it just doesn't feel like he was assertive enough in this season. Hopefully he can improve on that. I mean, it was still a big jump from the season beforehand. But I don't know if he's going to be, that second guy next to DeJounte Murray. And honestly, those two guys played absolutely horrible in the play-in game. I think Keldon Johnson had 15 points, 6 for 20 shooting. And then DeJounte Murray, yes, he did come off an injury, but still 16 points, 5 for 19 shooting, which is not good. It's weird seeing, the Spurs missing the playoffs these last few years and Pop still kind of being around. But at the end of the day, this is a young team, and they're making progress. They are. I think that they should still kind of get people to grow with this young group. But they might want to, find some ways to maybe get another star in here to help out DeJounte Murray, maybe make a legitimate playoff push next year. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I think that for the team that they had, they were able to make the play-in tournament, which is great experience for a young team being put in these pressure situations. Giving them a B, I think, is fair. Giving the Spurs a B is 100% fair, and I think, and like I said, no matter what the matchup was, whether it was one of the lower teams in the league, or it was the Milwaukee Bucks, they still put in 100% effort, and they were able to, have really good development into one guy on their team and DeJounte Murray. So final grade for them, I gotta give them a B. But yeah, those are all my grades for the play-in teams that did not make the playoffs. Let me know down below what you guys think. Agree or disagree. Let me know down below. I think this is where we're getting in today's episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and also hit the notification bell. And remember to follow Activity on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm going to be back hopefully Monday, Tuesday to talk more about the NBA playoffs. Potentially having a guest on. You'll have to wait and see. But yeah, just lots of playoff content coming up, NBA playoff content. And hopefully I get to start doing live soon again to talk more about this NBA playoffs because they've been fun to watch. I think I mentioned it earlier. There's a couple duds there, but hopefully we can get a more competitive series. But besides that, I think it's going to be a fun ride. Hopefully we get to see just again, more fun basketball. If you guys have any other topics you want me to talk about, let me know down below as well. And also, if you have anything you want to disagree with me, talk about it from this video, always free for the DMs if you want to talk about it. So, yeah. Again, thank you guys for all the support. Hope you all have a fantastic day. This is TV signing out. Take it easy, guys. Peace.